everyone. My name is Jacob. This is Hunt Detail. Thank you for joining me. Our Hunt Map applications are critical for when we're e-scouting or when we need to make adjustments with boots on the ground when we're hunting. And we all want something, especially if you're hunting multiple states, that has flexibility, versatility, but also brings some level of value because they're not cheap. And you really want to invest your time wisely into something that brings you value and not sort of something that can be cumbersome. So what we're doing is looking at 6 Hunt Map applications. I have a cheat sheet that you can download. Go to Hunt Detail Instagram, and you can click on a link in the profile there. There's a link tree. There's a lot of other free resources that you can download. And also, stay tuned for look for the Hunt Detail podcast that's on Apple and Spotify. We're probably 15 to 20 episodes in at this point, and love for you to check that out as well. But I did a review of these applications about a year and a half ago, and a lot has changed. And I'll be honest with you, there was an imposter in there. I made a mistake, and I'll own it. There was an imposter, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it in this review. Now, I'm not going to go through this line for line. You download this for free. I am going to have a second video that is more long form, that has more detail as I go through each of the mapping applications on my desktop, and each one gets about 5 minutes of dedicated video where you can sort of follow along. But in this video, we're just going to go through the pros and cons for worst to first. The categories are this: desktop 3D, handheld 3D, layers, waypoints, topographic offerings, tools, value, and versatility. And I rank them or score them 1 to 10 for each of those categories. And that's a total of 80 points that an application can score. And again, as you look at the spreadsheet, you may find that you value something different than me and score it different, higher or lower. So, and I understand we're really splitting hairs in some cases. So let's start with the worst app of my review. It scored the lowest number of points, and it was HuntStand. And this is the imposter. This is the one I really messed up on in my review 18 months ago. So some of the cons of HuntStand. The interface of HuntStand, in my opinion, is a little bit messy. There's a lot going on here, and I'm just not, I really don't care for this layout and this interface. As I've had more and more experience with each of the apps, this interface isn't great. Secondly, HuntStand has no Western units. So if you are hunting mule deer in Nevada, or mule deer in Colorado, or elk in Wyoming, it doesn't have the hunt units that you need, and you can't use that if you don't know where you're hunting. And so on their YouTube channel, they have content around Western hunts and that sort of thing, but it's really not for you if you want to go to another Western state. The offline mapping, I don't care for it either. I feel like it could be a better experience. I might be a dummy and just not know how to use it. So I don't think the demographic is someone like myself that hunts public land in the east and public land in the west. I think the demographic is for the lease whitetail hunter. There's a lot of tools that they're adding that suggest that it's more for someone that's hunting a lease with a group of guys, and that's okay. But again, it does sort of even like the waypoints. I haven't mentioned that they have no Western waypoints. Everything is Eastern related. So lastly, the biggest thing is if you pick a layer, let's say public lands, that's great, but it doesn't show you the private land layer. You can't overlay public and private at the same time. You can only pick one or the other. And if I'm in a topographic view and I want to see what the public land or the private land borders are, those aren't available in the topographic view. You have to go back to the public land view or the private land view. And that's where I really screwed up on my last review, as I didn't really catch that. And so that's a real problem. I want to be able to look at the topographic landscape and then see what's private and public at the same time. And I didn't really, shame on me for not catching that the first time. So that is why this app is the imposter. Now, some of the pros is that it's 29 bucks. It has a lot of layers. It has stand reservations. It has land for sale. It has moon and weather data. And so there are some analytics here with your, if you keep track of your harvests, it will give you some analytics around those harvests in terms of weather and moon and that sort of thing. And so those are some neat features, but this is not a great app for me personally, based on my hunting style. So let's go up to I guess number 5, and that would be BaseMap. Now, BaseMap is since my last review has made some updates, and I was really pleased with those updates. So BaseMap, some of the cons of BaseMap are you only have one satellite image. This is it. And so there are other layers, but they are related to public, private land and water and roads and trails. And all of these layers are excellent. And it does have all of your western and eastern state hunting units, etc. And even other things such as migration corridors or winter range and those sorts of things. So really impressed with that. But you only have one satellite layer. And the satellite layer that I was looking at was outdated in terms of areas that I know that have had new construction or changes. Now, maybe they don't update satellite layers within certain city limits and that sort of thing. Maybe it makes sense to just focus on big swaths of public hunting grounds, that sort of thing. But it was an outdated satellite image. So the other thing is that there's no 3D on the desktop. So you only have it on your phone. Now, the phone was very crisp and detailed. I really like the 3D imaging on my phone, but but I personally do a lot of e-scouting on my computer, so I don't know quite why BaseMap wouldn't have that on the desktop. Some of the pros was that it was $34.99. I mean, 35 bucks, you get 50 states. They've added in a new weather tool that I think is really solid. It's actually this is it. You can see hourly, 7-day. You can actually they have a wind marker where it shows sort of where your wind is, and you probably will see that on my demo as I'm talking about this app. It's running to my right here. You can connect those wind markers to a particular stand, and it'll tell you if it's optimal or not. They have a diverse set of waypoints, and there's a variety of topographic and terrain layers, and it covers all the species, east to west. And so BaseMap, I think, is a solid value, and is solid value and highly versatile. So definitely something that I would recommend if you're looking for something that's relatively inexpensive. Moving up, we now go to GoHunt. Now, some of the cons of GoHunt is to their credit, they've added a bunch of waypoints for both Eastern hunters. They have had a lot of waypoints for Western hunters. They're based out of Nevada, and they're primarily a Western hunt company, but they do offer all 50 states. And at a year and a half ago, they didn't have any Eastern-related waypoints. Now they've added those, and I was really pleased to see that. The only problem is that they're very unorganized. It's just a long laundry list, and this is one of my pet peeves with OnX. Is that, and really a lot of these apps, they don't have them organized, and you just scroll and scroll and scroll, but you can see they have Turkey and and white-tailed deer and truck, and I think I even saw maybe like ladder stand and some more eastern related waypoints, which gives it that's a real pro of this recent update. GoHunt does only offer one satellite image. It does offer two topographic layers, which I do like, the GoHunt topographic and the USGS topographic, which both I have found very, very helpful as I've messed around with them. But again, sticking with the cons, there's no weather data. And so if regardless of what you hunt, you'd like to see some weather data, you'd like to see some wind information. Now, certainly, I use a lot of different weather applications as I'm sort of planning my prospective hunts. So is it make or break with this app? Probably not, but I still score it as a tool, a useful tool, and they don't have it. So that was a ding against them. But again, the pros, I mentioned the two topographic layers. They have every species east to west. They have a rangefinder tool that is really nice. It's imagine, I mean, you might even see it on the display here, but imagine marking something that's across a range or across a ridge, and then creating a path to it based on using the camera on your phone and the app at the same time. They have a terrain analysis tool that they've somewhat integrated into this. It's actually, I'm not going to pull it up here, but it actually helps you identify elevation. And I'm glad to see it's now on some capacity in the handheld app. They do have a terrain analysis tool on the desktop that is much more robust in terms you can shade north-facing slopes or south-facing slopes. You can look at, you can highlight different elevations and such. So it's a really nice tool. And then they have a lot of layers. I mean, motor vehicle use maps, breaking down the different types of motor vehicle use roads, very specific. I believe there's crop data. There's a lot of layers that you see with OnX that you can get with the GoHunt app. So moving on to that would be number 4. Now we're going into number 3, and that is going to be Spartan Forge. And in the first evaluation of Spartan Forge 18 months ago, they really it wasn't ready for the big time. I mean, it lacked. They didn't have a 3D on the desktop. They didn't have hunt units in the western states. Just there were a lot of holes, and I was very constructively critical of that application, I believe, because it was selling itself as a mapping application, but it really wasn't going to be a great experience. And I think it was $39.99 at the time, which to me felt like it was overpriced for what it was. They've since increased the price, but they've also increased some of the offerings. And so coming in again at number 3 is Spartan Forge. Now, some of the cons, I feel like the western states do have hunt units for a wide range of species now. But and I checked it, and it really checked out, and it looks great. I didn't see, like in eastern states that I've hunted in, like Pennsylvania or Kentucky, they didn't have hunt units there. For example, there are elk in Kentucky. I've hunted elk here in Kentucky, and I wasn't able to see the units or zones in Kentucky, and I've hunted in Pennsylvania a bit, and I wasn't able to pull that up either. And so that's really sort of a hole there that I'm sure that they'll sort of fix over time, unless I missed it and just didn't push the right buttons. I did see that the satellite images that they offer, so you get 3 different satellite images. You can see that they're different times of the year, but they were all 3 outdated. They were not up to date. And I did look at that for all of the applications. You can find that on the spreadsheet. I felt like the UAV and the satellite images lacked a certain crispness. And it's like I see it that, like with GoHunt and BaseMap and some of these other platforms, they have a very crisp image, And with the Spartan Forge images, they seem to be sort of there's a yellow hue or something, almost a dated hue on those images, and I didn't really care for that. Now the UAV image, what I will go to move to the pros now. The UAV image was recent, and you are able to move it to a different date, and I could see that it dated back to 2016, which I think is fantastic. To be able to go back, sort of like when you're on Google Earth or even in the GoHunt desktop, you can look back to certain periods of time, certain years and months at images, and it helps you understand what that terrain is looking like at that particular point in time of year, and maybe what you can expect when you go out there at that time. One of the other pros is that the exaggeration tool, that was something that OnX introduced a couple, maybe a year ago, and now Spartan Forge has that. The split screen on the desktop that Spartan Forge offers, so you can now look at on one side of your screen, maybe it's a satellite image or a topographic image, and now you can pull up the LiDAR, which is something that Spartan Forge has done that's unique, sort of unique to them. And this is something that hillmap.com has, where when you go online, you can look at the same image, and as you move, that image stays. But you're looking at two different types of tools to look at that terrain, whether it's the LiDAR and the topo, or it's something different. Within the topo of Spartan Forge, you can change the gradients from 10, 20, and 35 feet gradients, I believe. The windrows has always been I've been a fan of. It has 3 months of data, and I think you can look at 2 weeks, 4 weeks, and then 3 months. The waypoint, the update that Spartan Forge, they won that competition. They have so many different categories and subcategories. I was so impressed with Spartan Forge waypoints and how they have them categorized. It's very well organized. They got a 10 out of 10 on that, and I don't think anybody else did, because some of them have east and west, but they just have a long list of waypoints like OnX does, which drives me nuts. And some of them don't even have, they just have western or just eastern. Spartan Forge nailed it there, so nice job. The journaling tool is nice, and the team sharing functionality with the app. I haven't used it, but I noticed it, and it seems like something great if you're planning a hunt with a group of guys. You have a particular team code, and then you all can maybe share mapping that way. Coming in at number 2 is OnX, and some of the cons with OnX. I mentioned the waypoints. I can't stand it. You got all the waypoints that you could want, but you have to scroll forever to get to a scrape. You only have your base layers are satellite, hybrid, and topographic, and I feel like it's time to sort of evolve that, because I think folks that use these applications are now able to move beyond sort of that basic satellite, hybrid, and basic topo. And there's just lack of topographic options. It's a real hole in their game if you compare it to the next one, for example. Some of the pros, I mentioned the exaggeration tool. The wind and the weather data are fantastic. I love that I can put a waypoint and attach the weather. It'll show the wind for that icon or that waypoint. So anytime I open it up, it just shows me what the wind is doing, and I can dig deeper into that. There's a radius tool I like. There's live sharing. There are layers galore. This is where OnX beats everybody else, is that they led innovation within the layer space, in my opinion. And so there are layers galore in terms of crop data, winter range, migration areas, drought data. It goes on and on. I think I did see that they're doing some stuff that's trying to compete with the GoHunt terrain analysis tool. It's called Terrain X. It's in a beta right now. I'll be honest with you, it didn't work when I messed with it. It hasn't worked, and then it's been a little bit of frustrating, but it looks like they're trying to provide a terrain analysis tool for the desktop, which I'm glad. It's necessary. It's needed. That's a really nice tool. I will say that OnX really is the gold standard, and there's a high level of trust that I have with this application. So that's why they came in second, in addition to all the other things that I tried to objectively measure. Coming in at number one is HuntWise. HuntWise, I mean, it scored the highest. I think I have it at scoring a 76 out of 80 points. I mean, it really has. I'm going to start with the cons. I mean, really, it's just opportunities. I think the split screen would be awesome addition to HuntWise. The split screen thing that HillMap does and that Spartan Forge is now doing. I think the rangefinder tool would be a nice add for HuntWise. I think slope and terrain analysis would be nice. I think that those are some things. Those are some opportunities, not necessarily cons, but opportunities. I think some of the pros are they have base layers galore. Like they have a ton of different satellite versions and contours and topographic, and so they're really trusting you, the user, to be able to use these to their fullest. They have weather data, a radar. So imagine looking at a live radar on your phone, on your HuntWise app, and you can filter it based on a number of different things that you might be looking for. Maybe it's snow, maybe it's lightning, temperature, pressure, wind, storm cells. There's several other things that you can filter it on. And so I really thought that was great, and a really nice customization. Very well organized waypoints. A phone record search feature. So if you click on a particular property and you click phone search, it'll search phone records for that property or for that name. And so I think that is a really nice tool, obviously, because if you're trying to get permission somewhere because you hit a buck or something and they crossed over, or maybe you're just trying to get access for this upcoming season. So HuntCast is their primary tool, where it's sort of a prediction tool. Now, this is all Spartan Forge has their own sort of prediction tool within their application, and but HuntCast is the tool that HuntWise uses, and it has, I believe, 12 different types of game. Of course, whitetail deer, but there's elk and bear and that sort of thing. And ultimately, it's connected to a lot of weather dynamics, weather-related dynamics. I think probably increasing pressure, dropping temperature, or temperature change percentage, other types of dynamics. The other thing is that the images were very, very crisp with HuntWise. I really like the interface as well, and so for that, HuntWise comes in at number one. Now, for those of you that want, again, a deeper look at some of these the desktop versions of these applications and to hear my commentary, I'm going to again have a second video that you can take a look at. This I just wanted to keep high level because I know some folks really just prefer that high level of information. Again, download the spreadsheet, check out the Hunt Detail podcast on Apple and Spotify and any other podcast platform. Thank you all for your support. Like and subscribe, and best of luck.